Hi, I'm Bill Brocktrop, Artistic Director of Antaeus Theater Company, and welcome to this chapter of the Antaeus Book Club. In this edition, we talk about the play Mother Courage and Her Children by Bertolt Brecht. Former co-artistic director Kitty Swink has a fabulous conversation with Andrew Robinson, who directed our production from the spring of 2005. And we have a special guest, Anne Gee Byrd, who played Mother Courage herself, the lead actor in the show. So sit back and enjoy this conversation.
This evening, we will be talking about Mother Courage and Her Children, and we're joined by Anne Gee Byrd and Andrew Robinson, who starred in the production, who directed the production. And before we jump into the Q&A, let's go through the slideshow. And I think we have a clip from the production as well.
Of course, a war's like any good deal. It's hard to get going. But once it's on the road, it's a pisser. Everyone's scared of peace, like a crapshooter who keeps fading to cover his losses. Of course, until it gets going, everyone's just as scared of war, afraid to try anything new. Hey, look, a canteen wagon. 2 women and a couple of young lads. Stop the old lady, Sergeant, and if there's nothing doing this time, you won't catch me freezing my ass in the April wind.
Stop all the troops. Here's Mother Courage. Captain, let them not come and buy, for they can get from Mother Courage. They will march in till they die. You're fighting men do not adore you. Packs on their backs, lights in their hair. But unto death, they're marching for you, and so they need good boots to wear. Guns are picked, victory's won, the spoils get won, and then sweep on. Let all of you who still survive get out of bed and look alive.
Of course.
Eugene Bertolt Friedrich Brecht, known professionally as Bertolt Brecht, was a German theater practitioner, playwright, and poet. Coming of age during the Weimar Republic, he had his first success as a playwright in Munich and moved to Berlin in 1924, where he wrote The Three Penny Opera with Kurt Weill and began a lifelong collaboration with the composer Hans Eisler. Immersed in Marxist thought during this period, he became a leading theoretician of epic theater, which he later preferred to call dialectical theater. During the Nazi period, Brecht lived in exile, first in Scandinavia and during World War II in the United States, where he was surveilled by the FBI. After the war, he was subpoenaed by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Brecht developed the combined theory and practice of his epic theater to explore the theater as a forum for political ideas and the creation of a critical aesthetics of dialectical materialism. Widely considered one of the great dramatic creations of the modern stage, Mother Courage and Her Children is Brecht's most passionate and profound statement against war. Set in the 17th century, the play follows Anna Fearling, Mother Courage, an itinerant trader, as she pulls her wagon of wares and her children through the blood and carnage of Europe's religious wars. Battered by hardships, brutality, and the degradation and death of her children, she ultimately finds herself alone with the one thing in which she truly believes, her ramshackle wagon with its tattered flag and a freight of boots and brandy. Fitting herself in its harness, the old woman manages, with the last of her strength, to drag it onward to the next battle. In the enduring figure of Mother Courage, Brecht has created one of the most extraordinary characters in dramatic literature. Andrew Robinson is a distinguished actor and the director of the Antaeus 2005 Mother Courage production. He is an American character actor and the former director of the Master of Fine Arts acting program at University of Southern California. He's known for his portrayals of the serial killer Scorpio in the crime film Dirty Harry, Larry Cotton in the horror film Hellraiser, and Elam Garak in the television series Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Anne Gee Byrd is a distinguished actress and longtime member of Antaeus Company. At Antaeus, she has appeared in Mrs. Warren's Profession, Autumn Garden, and Mother Courage, for which she won an LA Weekly Award. She's also appeared at the Mark Taper Forum, the Geffen Playhouse, the Pasadena Playhouse, LA Theater Works, and the Odyssey. Regionally, she has worked at South Coast Rep, the Old Globe, Seattle Rep, and Princeton Rep, and she recently appeared on TV in Murder on the First and in the motion picture Wild. So with that, I will mute myself and I will turn it over to Kitty and our guests.
I think I should also say that Andy was one of the original company members, weren't you, Andy?
No, yeah, I was. And I think we started in 1990 and it started Antaeus at the Taper in rehearsal room C.
No, yeah. Angie, so I think you brought the project forward to the theater. You sort of started bringing it, and you were the inception of this idea. Why did you want to do Mother Courage, and what was so important about it to you?
Well, I had done The Prostitute at the McCarter years earlier, and we had a wonderful woman playing Mother Courage. She was a terrific singer, but I always thought that the singing was not the main event, and so I always had this itch. So I just put together a reading to satisfy the itch, and I thought that would be that. But these were the days when we as a company had the luxury of not producing anything until it bubbled to the surface. So I thought we were done with it. John Apicella, God love him, took hold of it because the music was his passion about it. So he took it to a sort of next step, and then the next step, and then I guess we did another reading, and then Andy came on board, and that was the real game changer, because Andy is one of the most collaborative people in the theater I've ever worked with, and the whole thing partly by that time was inspired by all of our wish to stay out of the Iraq War. Well, by the time we opened, we'd already lost that battle. But the people that joined, and then Harry came in and did choreography, and I had an art teacher since deceased, but she built this, painted this great drop for the thing. Everybody had reasons beyond ego to want to be involved in this project. So it just bloomed. And I don't think I've ever been involved in anything that was that collaborative. It was great.
It's true, working with Andy is often that way, and Antaeus is often that way. Andy, you talked the other day to me about how you fell in love with this kind of theater. Could you talk about that? Because I think it sets us up for the conversation about the play.
Yeah, I remember, so funny because recently this actor by the name of Harry Bash, and Harry Bash, excuse me, was an actor that when I was working in as a kid, sort of picking up floors at this summer theater in Tamworth, New Hampshire called the Barnstormers. He played Mac the Knife in a production of a Threepenny that suddenly it was like nothing I'd ever seen. And every night I would sit through this production, and it was like, it spoke to me, my 16-year-old, very confused self. And then, that was it for Brecht. I of course, in college, I would read plays and would talk about Brechtian theory and all of that stuff. And then when I went to England on my Fulbright, I got off the boat in Southampton and literally took the train up to London. And a friend of mine said, "Listen, there's this play that supposedly is really good called Marat Sade." And so we went to the Aldwych Theater, and if you remember about the Marat Sade, it was probably the most powerful application of Brechtian theatrical concept. It was so fabulous, and it did change my life. And ever since then, that's the kind of theater, because naturalism, I always felt, kind of like stuck in naturalism as an actor. Of course, I was a young, stupid actor, so I was self-conscious anyway. But I believe that we were trying to be real, and I was trying to trick the audience into thinking that I was this character, and I was always dissatisfied and always felt my performances were clumsy and stolid. And then the Marat Sade, and then later when my work with La Mama, I then spent several years downtown at La Mama Experimental Theater Club. That totally freed me, and it was working in that area of Brechtian expressionism, and where naturalism, realism is a lie, and it freed me, totally freed me.
It's interesting because one of the things that Brecht talks about is that he wanted the audience to be really clear that it was not naturalistic in any way, because he thinks that lulls you into sleep. So
yeah, he says it's a lie.
Yeah.
As his whole idea about sentimentalism. If the audience is going to get emotionally involved and start crying, it's bullshit. It's or not so much the audience. If the actors are going to start crying,
hello,
and then and then suddenly you're sitting there in the audience, thinking, what the fuck? What am I, chopped liver here? Can I do the crying? So it was like, it opened up everything for me.
And this sort of leads me back to Anne Gee, who talked about, when we were talking the other day, you spoke about how it drives you crazy when the audience and the actors fall into the trap of feeling, when the actors fall into the trap of feeling too much and the audience doesn't get to have the experience of feeling it. And so I asked you both about what it was like at the end of the play to play a woman who, from what he wrote, is not affected and just moves on. Every time something terrible happens, she moves on with her life. And you guys both talked about what it actually was, and I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I'll leave Andy to talk about the whole alienation thing, because I frankly, as an actor, don't get that. As an actor, as far as I'm concerned, my job is to open my mouth and say somebody else's words and convince somebody that it came from my own soul. Mm-hmm. So it's all the same to me. Naturalism, the job is exactly the same no matter what. I'm telling a story and somebody's got to believe that I thought the story up as I'm going along. So you can explain alienation to them. I figure the writer has to do that. I don't have to do it as an actor.
So as the Tracy set it up, there was a whole thing about, he created this thing called theater of alienation and epic theater and all this stuff. You want to talk about that, Andy?
It's like, it's kind of boring, because it's, he was the Wile E. Coyote of 20th century theater, Brecht. He was a tricky little devil, and if you read, and I've read so much of his stuff, and I was going over some of it, in prepping for this, because I had a whole file of stuff, from the production. And I realized I didn't use any of it. The things I stole were bits and pieces of business, like in that last scene when Mother Courage, when Anne Gee gives, the peasants money to bury Katrine, and she keeps one coin back for herself. I stole that from Brecht. I stole pieces of business, but the theatricality, it's like, I just think he just tried to keep the audience, to break down that fourth wall, and that fourth wall that pretends that we're in a drawing room, and being natural and real, and just engage the audience. See, it's a complicated thing. It's a complicated thing. Because he was a dialectical materialist. He was a Marxist. He was really a Marxist. So you had thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and so there's always, capitalism that in his plays that's working against, say, Mother Courage's maternalism. She is the capitalist and the mother working against each other constantly, which is what destroys her family. So the dynamic of his play is that he didn't want people to fall into the sentimentality or even to the emotional logic of the play, because he wanted the play certainly to have an effect, but he wanted people to understand what the fuck is going on here, what war is about. And why people are waging war and trying to tell us that it's the best thing for peace. That's his alienation, to keep people awake in the theater and not be lulled into some soporific kind of, journey that the play may be trying to lull them into. And the thing about epic, I mean, I love it. I think it's epic theater. I was, even when I was rereading the play this time, and when I'm rereading the play, I could see every moment of our production. By the way, Anne Gee was so brilliant in this. And this production is like one of the 5 things in my life that I've been involved with that was so worthy of being done, of being presented, of where you felt proud to be an actor and a theater person and invite an audience in. It was epic. And where we did it, see, it's one of those times when everything came together. Everything came together. They were going to tear down this place that, the Antaeus is I guess you called it a new place. I thought it was another name for it, but and just so we figured, they're going to tear it down, then let's rip it apart and create the space we wanted. And the space was fabulous. And then I robbed this thing that I got from Ariane Manouchkine, this brilliant French director, where in her plays, if any of you were old enough during the Olympic Arts Festival in 1984 to see the stuff that she came with, the actors were the makeup tables. You walk into the theater, and the actors were sitting at their makeup tables, and they had their clothes racks, and they were getting dressed. And so, you see these, beautiful breasts and these, funny looking underwear and stuff like that. And it was like, I thought that was very Brechtian. And so we did the same thing, So all the actors were making up and getting dressed to go out as the audience was coming in. The whole thing was it was like a dream. This play, this production.
The space that Andy mentions, it was an old, it was a warehouse for a roofing company, and the back wall was the studs. If you didn't put up lath and stuff, what you'd see inside a wall. And it had been abandoned as a warehouse for a long time. But there were times when there would be rats crawling along the top of the wall while the audience was there.
Big ones, too.
As I recall, several people got flea bites.
Several, me and all my daughters.
Oh, my God.
He made us lay on some kind of awful mat at the back of the theater, and we all got fleas.
Yes, being directed by Andy is not for the faint of heart. And the other thing that Brecht does in all of his plays, if you guys saw Caucasian Chalk Circle, he does it there, is that he just stops the action and you directly address the audience about political stuff, about in this case it's the Catholic and the Protestants at war with each other all the time, and Mother Courage just switches sides because it's expedient to keep her capitalism going. How is that to play? What is that like as an actor to, if you do Shakespeare, you direct address the audience. If you do Greeks, you do that. But this was in a much more modern context. How is that how did that feel?
It felt perfectly natural. I don't know how to answer that. But in terms of that direct address stuff, when we did it at the McCarter, we used to have student matinees. And one of the lines is, "The war is not yet near its end." And there would always be some student that would go, "Oh, no."
Who directed that production, Angie? Oh, never mind.
I don't remember his
I'm
name.
sorry,
We used to call him the Red Ants. He was redheaded, and we weren't that fond of him. I don't remember his real name.
Oh God.
So it's interesting, this play, that there's so much horror. The 3 kids are killed. The war keeps going on. She has to switch. There's just this sort of constant. The upper classes using the lower classes as cannon fodder, and yet it's incredibly funny and entertaining and charming and
Well, the irony is corrosive, and everything about the play is, and that's and his the contradictions that he's because everything that's part of his dialectic. Everything is at war with itself. All the characters are at war with themselves. So so the irony. So people are and people like having this. What is the word I'm looking for? It doesn't make any difference.
One of the things. Somebody asked me the other night what it was like, someone younger, obviously, what it was like living through the assassination of Kennedy, both Kennedys and Martin Luther King. And what was it like to live through those times? And you're living your life. That's really, I was busy doing theater. So that was a big deal to me. I remember losing hope because of all that, but these people are just surviving. It's like, I looked at the reviews when we were revising, and the 2 bad ones were people that didn't feel I suffered enough. It was sort of the thing I could glean from what they missed. But this is about people who survive. This is about people who, governments do all kinds of shit and we have to put up with it and we're complicit. And I don't know, it's about surviving. And I guess that's what appealed to me most about this character. And ultimately what he had to say is that, I don't know how you fix things, but you do live through them and hopefully come out. Oh, I don't know. It ends so terribly. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
No,
move on.
and the thing is that you don't do a lot of weeping, geschrying.
Oh.
And you're in a situation where you can't even mourn the death of your children. And that's the thing. If you don't have a strong inner life with a Brechtian character, it's just music hall shit. Here's this woman and she loses her children and she can't outwardly, express how she feels about this. But the great thing with Angie's performance, which was and this, as far as I was concerned, was the core of the production, was that you felt what was going on with her inside. And if you don't, and if there isn't that connection, if she is just this cold merchant mother dragging her wagon around and feeling nothing, then I suppose that would be, probably Brecht would like that. That probably would be his idea of a really good alienated day. But not me. I mean, I
Well,
think,
he may say that, but you've seen pictures of Weigel. My God, just the face. It's somebody who suffered, somebody who knows something about what it is.
that's right. And think of where these people came out of. You know, I mean, it's World War II. I mean, and the entrance of World War II, because this was written before World War II, just before.
And for me, one of the most heartbreaking moments is when she disavows Swiss cheese.
Oh,
At son number 2,
oh.
when she has to pretend that it.
When his dead body comes in.
Yeah.
And do you know this person? No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I'd forgotten that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was it. Can we talk about Katrine for a second? Because I always feel like she's oddly the other lead character. Katrine is the daughter she's a deaf mute, and and yet she's the person whose eyes we see the play in many ways. And when she dies, in a funny way, the play dies. And you had 2 extraordinary young people doing, Emily and Katie, doing the play with you. Was it a struggle for them? Did you feel like you guys had to help them through it? I mean, they really are sort of the conscience of the play, in a play that feels like it's kind of, that he tries to alienate you from consciousness. Or you know what I mean? He tries to keep the characters from being sentimental about it, but she's the character that sees everything, feels everything,
and she's the only character that shows generosity and empathy,
yeah.
and does and acts selflessly.
Yeah, she does. Okay, nobody's going to say anything else, are they?
No, you're right. Kitty, you're right about Katrine. I mean, Katrine, again, she's that opposition to that world. She's the one that wants to have it, wants to have a married life and have children, and then of course the great irony there is that she can't talk. So you've got the one piece of goodness, the one character that exhibits goodness in this play, who's a mute.
Mute, yeah.
So and it's like, and then the last scene in the play, which is arguably, not arguably, it is one of the most powerful scenes ever done in theater, is like when she's on the roof and she's banging that drum. She can't talk. She can't scream, but she can bang that fucking drum so that those people in the town will be, alerted that they're about to be massacred. And then she's murdered. Yeah. It's like the end of that play. I want to do this play again. I really want to do this play again. We need it now. We need this play now. We need this consciousness. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, we do. Eve Gordon says, let's do it. I love that Eve never takes a stand on anything. So I wonder if anybody has any questions at this point, because we've talked a lot about what it is. And the other thing about Katrine is that she's the one person that Mother Courage actually also, she pays for that funeral. There's no disavowal there. She allows herself to have a minute of mourning before she moves on to the
next.
She doesn't haggle, but she keeps that penny. She keeps
does.
that one coin.
She's got to survive. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Mary, you have a question?
No, I just had a comment on Katrine and her not speaking. I always felt that it was indicative of her inability to speak, that she was the person that was not, say, the politician pushing the war. She wasn't talking pro or con the war, and yet she was the most empathic personable character in the play. And once she starts to make noise by banging the drum, then she's murdered. I think there's something all tangled up in that Brecht was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably right. Marilyn Brumder just said, yes, I've never seen it. Let's do it.
Let's do
You
it.
guys should do it. It's interesting that he, in the middle of a war that was, in the run up to a war that was precipitated by anti-Semitism and others, you know, that was the pretext for the war, I think. This was a war about the Catholics and the Protestants and the switch back and forth. And Mother Courage keeps going. She goes, okay, well, this week I'm going to go to that encampment. And oh, now the Protestants are in the lead. Let's go back to them. And
it's funny, you talk about the irony, and of course the irony is that the one innocent, the one feeling a beating heart is mute.
right.
And I was curious because when I looked at the script again, I thought, the writing isn't that, I mean, the writing is not thrilling. And I thought, actually, what he creates are a series of still life images almost that that are very hard to forget. The selling of the chicken, there's something about that. The listening to the guy in the tent, Katrine being shot in the thing, I mean, it's a series of, you could almost do a series of mute still lifes and tell this story with it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the scenes are each so descriptive of what direction the story's taking. And then that dance, looking for money outside the rich guy's house at the end. Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
And I think that's true of all of his plays, that it's these flashes that are held together with some, not particular, the connective tissue is not as interesting as the sort of images that you live with through the whole.
Tableau vivant, that's what I was trying to think of,
That's
where
it,
you could do a series of those and tell this story almost.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come upon the Eric Bentley translation? Because that's the one you use. There's a lot of different translations.
Well, that's Eric Bentley is that's, yeah, because the other big influence in my life about Brecht, and my main probably tutelage about Brecht, was from a playwright and a dear friend of mine by the name of George Tabori. And George Tabori, who was a Hungarian Jew whose family died in Auschwitz, a lot of his family, and who I worked with, and who was a devotee of Brecht and had worked with Brecht. And his plays, New York theater, I mean, such bullshit. They always put his plays down as being Brechtian or second-rate Brechtian and whatever. But what was the question? I forgot what the question was. Before I go
can't remember either.
You were talking about Eric Bentley. Why you chose that translation?
Eric Bentley.
Oh, yes. So yeah, I wanted to do George's translation. I never told anybody this and then I read George's translation, and George had such a particular take on it that what I loved about Eric Bentley is that Eric Bentley, I hope the Brecht estate or Eric Bentley estate doesn't.
Nobody's listening.
But you could fuck with Eric Bentley's translation. And we did. And as I'm going through the script, I realize how much rewriting we did. A lot of it, because a lot of the syntax was just like a cart with square wheels. So, we had to do something. And that's the, so, and I love dear Eric Bentley. He was a true believer and a good man. And I apologize, Eric.
Well, we won't tell anybody.
No.
I wish John Apicella was here, because one of the great elements of this production was that he had company members who played instruments, who he constructed a band out of to do the score that was
Right.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
And Alicia Woolerton playing one of the characters and her accordion. I mean,
Which was great.
yeah, I don't know. It was they really, and what we had a didgeridoo, didn't we too? Or
Yeah, we did. We had
and didn't Proctor play the violin?
yes, he
Yeah.
He did. He did. I think I saw it 3 times. So yeah, he did. And John did the same thing for Caucasian Chalk Circle, along with a few other people, as they created the score, which I thought was fantastic.
Also, for people that weren't there, we created. They made platforms for the audience that had tiers, and it was 3/4 round, so to speak. And we didn't have the money to have proper chairs, so everybody in the company brought wooden chairs from their own house, which we strapped together, and that's what the audience was sitting in.
It was so
It was
funky.
great.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect for Brecht. I know Bob Kraft saw it. You saw it, Bob, didn't you? Yeah.
And we haven't talked about Chuck Olson.
Please.
First of all, also Iacovelli is a brilliant stage
Designer.
scenic designer.
Yeah.
But one of his brilliance is that he keeps things simple. He knows how to make the most out of what it is. And his big concept was, this is a crossroads. And other than that, he just used the building itself and built something. So we saw the wall. But Chuck Olson was the one that, for me, he helped create the character. Actually,
Chuck was the prop.
he was the prop master. And his concept was, we couldn't afford it wasn't going to work in this space to have an elaborate, and we couldn't afford it anyway. So he used the kind of cart they use in a warehouse to haul boxes around. And then he put a basket on it that had all the props in it. So you'd have to open the basket to get all this stuff out. And he had me bring personal items and photos and pieces of clothing to stick in this basket so that I could have that to refer to.
Right.
He was just extraordinary.
Personal
Oh,
story.
and here is the pipe he built for me. I still have it.
Well, that was the cook's pipe.
Yeah.
That you.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
No, he was a beauty. Then the thing about Iacovelli, one of the great things about Iacovelli is that, and I've worked with him several times, is that he takes what he's given. He takes it. You know, he doesn't try to like reimagine, the reality of a low budget production. And the things we talked about, that crossroads thing, and the crossroads thing allowed me to find the opening of that play, and it reminded me of the whole thing of, that Robert Johnson song, "The Devil at the Crossroads," and that idea that when you're at the crossroads, that's when you meet the devil, and if you pay the devil, in other words, with your soul, the devil will tell you which way to go. That's the right way to go. And that was the opening that we found with Iacovelli, with Apicella and Jeffrey Wade as the two soldiers, sort of like going back and forth along the crossroads grid that we had, the big X.
How much collaboration and sort of reworking and working and reworking and working the blocking, because it was very. The blocking would sometimes become a maelstrom of activity, and then it would just.
Well, Brecht was right. Brecht said you can only block this play correctly if you understand that the wagon is the main character. So wherever the wagon is, that dictates the blocking, and he was absolutely right. And the wagon always had to be in the right place, and it could, and it had to be. You'd have to, because we're essentially in the round. It was. I thought we were in the round. Was it 3/4, Angie?
3/4.
It was 3/4, but it felt like the round to me. Well, being 3/4, you are in the round, as far as I'm concerned. And so you had to stage that wagon had to have different stations for each scene.
And Angie, when you talked about collaboration, part of it was that you guys all helped him build the blocking together, or it's not a director saying you're going to do this and you're going to do that.
Well, I'm going to tell Anne Gee Byrd what to do.
There is that. There is that. Yeah.
But the group stuff, there were certain things was actually came from Harry, didn't they?
Oh, everybody. Well, of course, Harry is a genius. Harry is
the musical numbers. It seems to me you and he collaborated to create a lot of.
It was
that.
Harry. Harry did it.
Did he?
No, I just said, bail me out, baby.
Oh well, there you go. All of you, whoever doesn't know Harry, I think most of you do, but he knows how to choreograph a musical number, so it was invaluable.
Yeah, he's not only a great actor and a great singer, he's also a great dancer and choreographer.
Yeah,
he can do it. He truly is a triple threat, which is an unusual thing.
Thank you, Andrew Robinson, Anne Gee Byrd, and Kitty Swink for this discussion of Bertolt Brecht's Mother Courage and Her Children. I'm Bill Brockdrup. I hope you join us for more book clubs in the future. Thank you.